Hey folks, Alice from Vengage here. Today we're going to be talking about SWOT analysis. I'm going to tell you what a SWOT analysis is, how to use one, and give you some tips for best practice as well. I'll be giving you loads of information, but don't worry, we've put it all in a blog post full of actionable templates and even more examples. I'll drop the link of the bio below. But before we start, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another video from Vengage. What is a SWOT? Okay, let's get started. So what is a SWOT analysis? A SWOT analysis is a form of evaluation. You can use it to evaluate your business, a particular project, or even yourself personally. There's lots of different reasons why you might use a SWOT, but today we're going to be looking at them in the context of small businesses. A SWOT is an acronym and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. SWOTs have been around since at least the 1960s, although the origin of them is a bit unclear. They're still used by businesses today across the globe. Whilst a SWOT analysis is a good starting point for evaluation, the disadvantage of a SWOT is that it doesn't leave you with any actionable outcomes, so you should always take the information you gather within the SWOT process and develop that further. We always recommend that after you complete a SWOT that you do continue to do further business development. Okay, so why would you do a SWOT? It's important to remember that your business doesn't exist in a vacuum and that you should analyze both internal and external factors. The SWOTs allow you to think about your internal strengths and weaknesses, but also any external things that could affect your business's performance. And don't forget that your competitors also have strengths and weaknesses, and those are important to take into account when planning. Strengths. Strengths are the areas you excel in. What do you do? Strengths. Better than anybody else? To identify your strengths, spend some time thinking about what you've done well, what tasks were well within your comfort zone. Were there any times you exceeded expectations? Weaknesses. Next, you need to weaknesses. Identify the areas of improvement. Think about things that you find difficult to achieve, tasks that you've struggled with, or times that you've fallen short of the mark. Also think about areas that you don't feel confident in, regardless of the results. Moving on to the O in our SWOT. Opportunities. Opportunities. Opportunities are areas that your business could take advantage of. Is there an unserved or underserved market you could grow into? Are you maximizing your media coverage? Could you change or develop a product to better serve a wider audience? Threats. And finally, threats are areas you should be wary of. And by threat we mean, what are your competitors up to? What's the market looking like? Are there any changes of regulation that are upcoming? Things that would negatively affect your business. So when we talk about opportunities and threats, it's important that we think about short, the mid, and the long term. Your product might be great now, but is there anything that could happen in the next 6 months that could change? What about in the next year? You need to be prepared for this and stay ahead of the game. A good time to conduct a SWOT analysis is when your business is going through an area of change. This could be a launch, a new product, or a reposition in. A couple of key times to conduct SWOT analysis: when developing or building a new strategy, when going through a period of growth, when scaling your marketing efforts. Once your SWOT is complete, you can use the information you've gathered to inform your business strategy. Spend some time thinking about how you can continue to grow your strengths and how you can improve your areas of weakness. You should also think about your strengths and weaknesses in the context of threats and opportunities. Could any of your strengths help leverage an upcoming opportunity? Will any of your strengths to be effective in tackling a threat? Could your weakness be a problem in an opportunity area? Are weaknesses leaving you vulnerable to threats? Some SWOT best practice: use measurable and quantifiable statements in your SWOT analysis. Back up anything you say with evidence. Use stats, figures, and percentages to prove your point. Make sure all areas of business are represented in your SWOT analysis. Rope in relevant people from each department to offer their own strengths and weaknesses, as well as to give feedback on the strengths and weaknesses you've identified. Having an outside point of view will really help here. Try to keep the lists even. If you have 5 strengths, make sure you have 5 weaknesses. Have a goal in mind when conducting a SWOT analysis. Are you trying to achieve growth, launch new products, or take on a new market? SWOTs are particularly useful when there's a definitive outcome you're trying to achieve. There are many different ways you could visualize a SWOT. You can use a 2x2 grid. This is a great way to compare all the data at once because each individual box has a direct relationship with all other boxes. This is a great way to visualize your strengths against your weaknesses, your strengths against your opportunities, and your strengths against your threats all at the same time. This makes it easier to think of a SWOT as a whole rather than individual segments. You can also use a vertical list. If you're using a vertical list, make sure that there's enough differentiation between each segment of your SWOT. Use different colored boxes, bold lines, or plenty of space. Alternatively, you can use a horizontal table. These are particularly good if you want to present your SWOT analysis in a presentation, as it takes up the most amount of space on the page. Okay, what should you evaluate? Think about your customers, your competitors, market share, business growth, availability, price point, reputation, online following, customer retention rate, budget restrictions, suppliers, company culture. Don't aim for the perfect SWOT straight away. The best way to conduct a SWOT is to gather all the relevant people from different departments, like we discussed earlier, into an open brainstorm. Ask everybody to list everything that comes to mind when they think of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There's no wrong answer at this stage. Once the brainstorm is complete, spend some time going through the list, identifying what you believe to be the key strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Keep your overall goal in mind when doing this refinement. If, for example, your goal is to increase revenue, make sure that you pick strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that reflect this. Whilst your company culture might be a great strength, if it doesn't directly help your goal, don't include it on the list. Once you have this list, present it back to the team and use it to develop any further business strategy or strategic planning. All this information about SWOT analysis is in a blog post. I'll pop the link in the bio below. We've also included some actionable templates so you can get started on your SWOT analysis right away. Drop us a comment below if you found this video helpful, and we'd love to see some of the designs you created. Don't forget to subscribe to Vengage so you never miss a video.